Can you hear me? 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 Hi, it's Tim Byrne. This is Tim Byrne, almost live. We're down at the Metropolitan Toronto Convention Center, PM Expo. It's December 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2019. And I got an old friend of mine.
Hi.
You've been on the show before. You ripped
I have
off
been on the
PM Expo and didn't pay to be here.
That's right.
How's business?
Business is unbelievable. I'm turning down work, what's really
you're
disappointing me. It bugs me.
Are you really?
You know, all these fires, you know the big North York fire?
Okay.
They called us in. Can't do it. We had to throw 5 bodies at it. We don't have the people. Man, you know how
Really?
bad that hurts? That's like big time fees and we can't do the work.
Okay, but are you not like an emergency service to some degree?
We are emergency service.
So how do you not have the resources available to fill in the little gappies like that?
Well,
or do you literally...
That's not a little gap, right? When that's a major catastrophe. So last year there was a big fire.
Okay, stop. You have to explain to everybody.
Yeah.
That was, how tall was that apartment building that went up in smoke?
Oh, it's like, I don't know.
25 story?
Under.
The fire,
It's like in the teens.
And the fire was in the 9, 10, 11, 13 in the middle?
Yeah, exactly.
The whole building had to be evacuated.
Right.
If anybody because a lot of our viewers are out of U.S., so they were going, I don't know what you're talking about with North York. So there's an apartment building fire. If anybody can ever remember London, England, 3 years ago when they had a big, huge inferno.
That type of thing.
Right, so this building went up with 4 floors. The fire department caught it, but man, it was like fast and it was hot. And Romeo's company does all the abatement work and
well, we don't do the abatement work. We do the consulting.
Sorry, the consulting
So
side
we write up the scope of work for the contractors to follow, right? So when there's a major fire, there's a lot of flooding. So you have to go and moisture map all the walls to make sure there's no mold that start to grow. So we have to go into every suite, do an assessment of every suite. So you have an army of people with measuring and moisture measures, instruments, and got to fill up blueprints of data, and at the end of the day, you give it to the contractors and you supervise, make sure they're getting all the job done, right? Now, the floors with fire is different. You have to do fire assessment, which is a whole different process.
Is it?
Yeah, for sure. And how to clean soot, right? And get that carbon off of surfaces, and that stuff gets into the air and HVAC systems, and it just goes on and on and on, right? It's a never-ending job.
That building won't open for a year, though, right?
Well, no. That building actually is not as bad. Last year, remember, around this time, we had that 650 Parliament.
And that was a 30-story
That
building.
was a big one.
And that was a big fire that lasted a long time.
And that's still not occupied.
And they don't expect to be occupied for some time
Well,
yet. They haven't given them a date.
The funny thing was, in July, I think it was, they had commissioned all the electrical. And what happened in that fire, it went through the shafts. So all the electrical wires got fried. So it had no electrical in the entire building for over a year. So they had to bring in a big-time electrical contractor under emergency situations to replace everything. So they got all ready to go. They flip on the switch, not thinking, maybe there were some apartments that had their stoves on from a year ago, and someone had a stove on with a pot on it and started another fire.
Fuck off!
So
the building that burnt down, they got to flick on the power, and they burnt it down.
It wasn't as bad. They didn't.
They lit their own building on fire.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So
that's embarrassing.
It is. Anyhow, it delayed the move-in, so they still haven't moved in. And the funny thing is,
that's super embarrassing.
We're still on this job. So, you know, it's sweet to have all these jobs, but if a job lasts a year and I throw 5 guys at it, another job comes along.
So you're doing that fire.
We're doing that fire. Yeah. And then 2 weeks before this North York fire, big warehouse caught on fire, 250,000 square feet.
I remember that one. Yeah, okay.
Well, we got pulled into that. So now we're really spread thin. Now,
who calls you? Insurance companies or owners?
No, the insurance companies, the adjusters. Any big claims, we're in tight with a lot of these adjusters that they know our services. They know we show up within 2 hours. They need that.
So the one that you said you didn't have the resources to execute, you did show up originally then?
Well, we answered the phone call, right?
But it's like show up initially to go.
But we were straight up with them. It's like, want to do it, love to do it, can't do it. You know, we want to be fair to you. We can't disappoint you, and we don't have the horses to do the work. So
you don't have the forces to do the work because, and we had this conversation prior to coming there, you don't have the forces to do the work because you don't have any trained labor?
Can't find trained labor.
And you were in a conference this morning in a round table.
Right, so there was a fireside chat with,
what'd you call it?
A fireside chat.
That's inappropriate.
It's kind of this type of thing. Couches.
That's inappropriate though, right?
Why is that inappropriate?
It's the business you're in. Well, fireside chat, kind of morbid, right? It's kind of like if you were like in the funeral home business, right? You're having a casket meeting.
You call it in the parlor.
Right, having a parlor meeting.
We're in the parlor. We're having a fireside chat.
With who?
It's kind of round table. So Tom Tehan, who's the CEO of WSIB, John Mullenhauer, president of the Toronto Construction
WSIB is the Workers' Compensation Board for Ontario, Canada only. And in Canada here, I'm not sure how the U.S. works. Each province is responsible for insuring the worker. The feet in the street person. Sorry, I wanted to.
The interesting thing about it was in Ontario, 8 years ago, we had an unfunded liability of $14 billion.
An unfunded liability.
That means that they were in the red, and they had no way of paying it back. And the government of the day, 8 or 10 years ago, said to the WSIB, if you don't fix this mess, we're going to take the unfunded liability and put it onto the province's overall debt, which at the time was like $240 billion, and they were going to eat this additional $14 billion. And so the minister at the time was very adamant that the WSIB had to clean up their own act. So they put in a very aggressive plan, increased everybody's rates over, I don't know, a number of years.
It was brutal.
Last year, they went into the black. Now they have a $3 billion surplus, right? And so there's major reform, rate groups, all new rate groups, and even within the rate group, if you're a better contractor than your competitor, you're going to pay less than your competitor. Right?
I still don't like them.
Well, and that's fair because you've had experiences over, your entire career where they were not your friend, and now they're saying that they want to be your partner.
I'm not in socialism,
right? Well,
and WSIB is a socialistic thing.
Well, no, they're more a monopoly, not really a socialist.
Anything without competition and forced consumable without competition is.
Well, that happens every day. All the a lot of big corporations. Google is kind of like that, isn't it?
No, because anybody can go on that marketplace.
Right, but no one has. No one has the Google ads and all the cost per clicks.
The difference between Google and WSIB is. You can go after Google if you want. You can have
I mean, as far as litigation against them.
You can have that fight. You can compete. You cannot compete against. I cannot go in the marketplace after WSIB.
But listen, I'm not for or against. I'm just giving you my perception that the current
system,
the current leadership, and Tom Tian is an outstanding stand-up guy. I believe in what he's saying. I buy into his program. And he says at the end of the year, once they get it all set up, if there's a surplus, everybody gets rebate checks. I believe that. And that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I just think competition makes them stay lean.
Well,
makes them find ways.
Most conservative governments don't want to be in business, period.
Yeah, I know where our conversation is going to head into politics, and you're a political guy anyway.
I'm kind of a political animal. I like following the players.
I mean, I'm not a socialist, and I don't think the government should be responsible for creating jobs. Period.
Well, that's a pretty hard stand because the government also takes responsibility for social services.
I know they shouldn't.
Right, but they get pressure from the electorate, from the people.
Well, they get pressure from the mediocrity of society.
But when you look at systems around the world, it's generally accepted that there's social services in all the big good countries.
But if you listen, and I'm going to sound like a loon now on my own show, but if you've read anything from Ayn Rand and read Atlas Shrugged, you know that all countries go from full-out capitalism into democracy, from democracy to socialism, socialism to fascism, fascism to communism, implodes back to capitalism.
Right.
I mean, and by the way, that's just the evolution of all economies.
Right.
And all politics and all government.
That's never happened in North America.
Okay, but if you look at like a Russia, right, for instance, you're talking about 100 years worth, not 100 days.
Well, yes.
Right. So
and you don't have no idea what the next system is going to be in Russia.
Right. But no, Russia's right now. Russia went to that massive capitalism, black market.
So yeah,
that's a healthy purge.
They would appear to be
capitalistic.
It would appear. But there's a handful of guys controlling everything in Russia.
But they're by the way, whether it's socialized or whether it's a bunch of private entrepreneurs, there's always a handful of guys running stuff.
That's right. They call all the shots.
The fascism, socialism, democracy, capitalism. There's always a handful of guys.
It's always the same backroom guys.
And you can't steal 1% off everybody.
Not to be a cynic, but in our system, I think all the political parties. There's a back room, 4 or 5 guys that make all the call. They call all the shots.
But there has
Whoever
to be.
they handpick to be leader, that dude has to follow his script or he's out, right?
Listen, at the end of the day, the only reason socialism doesn't work is because when you create mediocrity, you take away ingenuity. Because why would you rise above the rest? Why do you want to become better if everybody's making $32.50 an hour? You need to have people making $1, and you need to have people making $1 million. To keep ingenuity and creativity in the marketplace.
Well, you can't limit people's potential, right? No different than a doctor, right, who has to go on his hands and knees to the government, and why can he only bill $100,000 a year?
Yeah, mediocrity builds.
But if you're an aggressive doctor that wants to, have clinics all over the city and you want to make $1 million, why can't you do that?
It's why socialism doesn't work though, right? Because it creates mediocrity. Mediocrity makes complacency because there's no reason for you and I to go fight for the bigger, better thing.
Right. Well, that's where I think, government has no place in, telling a doctor how many hours he can work.
I don't think government has any place to tell anybody about work.
Right. To a certain point, but I would say, like, if they control certain things that nobody wants to do, WSIB is a good example. Like you're saying, you think that there would be competition?
Insurance companies would want to pick it up.
I don't know if they would.
Insurance companies look at WSIB and go,
do you think? You think there's an appetite for it?
Yeah.
Have you had any actuarials or any insurance companies? Have you did any like informal straw poll to see if that?
My insurance guys have said if we could, we would. We have XYZ in the U.S. We have XYZ in California.
Oh, so they are doing it in certain countries or certain.
There are certain states and certain areas that there are opportunity for private insurance, so you can opt out as long as you have X coverage. So the government sets a. Listen, I think government should be setting standards and policies, not execution.
Right. In that light, then there should be no LCBO.
Correct.
There should be.
Not that there shouldn't be. Listen, I think saying there's an over 19 store. For Ontario 19 is the age that we allowed to do adult things here. Whether we're an adult or not, it's irrelevant. But that's when we're allowed to do adult things. But I think that there should be. I think there should be legislation. There should be a protocol and procedure for selling marijuana or selling booze or selling pornography or whatever. I don't think anything should be restricted. But we should manage the process in which we execute. But I don't think the government should actually participate in it.
Right. That makes total sense.
Right.
And I think to a certain extent, the government tries to do that. They get bogged down, and depends on the level of government too. Like on the municipal level, like they got their nose into everything.
I think all government wants.
But on the provincial level, I don't think it's so much. So.
Take away the U.S. for a second here, but specifically Canada, because we have a lot of U.S. listeners. That's why I said that. Okay. We have 30% of the people are all watching. Canada, I think our government is. Our governments are slowly working towards more and more socialized everything.
Yes, they are, 100%.
And they want to take full control of us. They want us to.
I don't know if they want to take full control. They want to take 50% of your whatever.
You can't collect tax dollar unless I control you.
Right.
And then they want to be able to turn back to you and hand you back what you have and go, oh, I know you gave us 50 cents, but now we're going to give you 10 cents of garbage.
Right.
We're going to give you easy electricity. We're going to give you water. It's funny, they don't want electric-based cars to come.
You think the government doesn't want electric-based cars?
No, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but let's put some reality on this. Hyundai, Tesla, a lot of companies that are forefront in the EV, they've actually already said, and if you really Google it and really dig in deep, they've already said that they don't even need electricity. Solar panels and self-compelled wind turbines with inside the shaft of the vehicle, they can actually drive their own power to their own vehicle and no need for hydroelectricity to be created or sold. If the government doesn't, by the way, that whole technology leads to your house coming off grid. It leads to the entire, we've built, for the last 120 years, we've built an entire industry around petroleum, bottles to gasoline, all petroleum based. And when that corrodes and unwinds and we don't need the government to supply us clean water, I looked at a gray water solution in my house that will literally take my shower water, purify it, and put it back into my tap. And literally you can just keep recycling it.
Right.
And never have to take town water.
Yeah.
I renovated my house and I looked at a furnace to burn garbage. All right, the government won't allow it in here, but it's 99% efficient with a charcoal filter. I never have to put refuse at the end of my driveway. And I can put Tesla shingles on my roof and take my...
It's all there.
They don't want us off grid because why would I give them 50 cents of every dollar if I ain't getting fuck all from them?
Not to defend the government, but
that's what you're about to do.
It's a balancing act. Well, you've heard the term, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So all these self-serving industries, the automotive industry, petroleum, chemical industry, they pay very expensive lobbyists to knock on these doors, and they just bending government's ear all day long, every day, right?
Good on them.
Yeah, but that's why the government's got to balance that because these guys are promising them jobs and development.
I think the government's so fucking inefficient in spending money that they need more money.
Well, they do need more money. They don't have enough money for what they're doing, right?
Because they're stupid and they don't know how to spend money.
Well, it's mismanaged. I think it's mismanaged.
Listen, when you raise minimum wage up, by the way, I'm a high school dropout minimum wage kid that lived in the shitty basement apartment. Dad went bankrupt, lost everything, blah, blah, blah. I think all ingenuity, all mother of invention comes from poverty. Do you know why the fucking government took over fucking the marijuana business? Because a bunch of poor motherfuckers grew plants in their basement and sold it. And when they figured out how to make it work and how to make it legit and how to bag it properly and
they
get
want
it
their pound of flesh, man.
We're taking over that business.
For sure.
And it was out of poverty the marijuana business grew. Totally out of poverty.
100%.
And all business grows out of poverty. You starved, open up a fucking business.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? But I don't know if you necessarily have to say it's because of poverty. I think if it's in the individual, you either have that drive or you don't have the drive.
But you literally crush people's
dreams.
Adversity brings education, right?
For sure. And I think you have to fail to
adversity is ingenuity.
You have to fail to succeed.
So when you allow nobody to fail,
but you hear stories about the guy who was born in a rich family and went bankrupt and was penniless and still pulled himself up and got back to winning.
No, I get
because
that.
You don't have to come from poverty all the time.
No, but
you have to suffer adversity, yes.
Yeah, you have to suffer adversity. Yeah. But I think when the government hides it, shadows it, covers it, blankets it, you create mediocrity. When you create mediocrity, you decrease enthusiasm. The fight. Why would I fight fucking harder than you? We're all eating the same Kraft macaroni and cheese. Yeah. We're all fucking sleeping on the same shitty mattress. We all got the same shitty cable, the same shitty tap water. And by the way, I'm not allowed to get any more because the government said I can't. And if I did, they're going to take more from me anyway and lower the value of what I just earned.
They call that universality.
I mean, Russia did it, and I know I go back to Russia. And by the way, on an evolution, they're going to keep evolving. We're evolving.
You're evolving.
Canada's going to end up being a very socialized, very communistic way over the next 100 years, and then it's going to blow apart because you can't afford to let your society become mediocre. And mediocrity is created with socialism.
I don't know. You talk a lot of sense. You make a lot of sense.
Okay,
I'm giving you that.
I'm going to tell you.
But you kind of have a lens on. You're not really getting the whole picture, I think.
Are you not?
Right?
I think unions breed negativity because everybody's the same. Everybody's flatlined, so you're all, right. And the only way, if the only way you can rise above the occasion is to be an angry, pissed off individual, that's a problem with the methodology. And unions literally go, your employer's an asshole, you're a bad guy.
I have an issue. I have an issue with that, but I'm not totally against unions. I have an issue with their approach.
Have you not thought they've just grown into the corporation in which they started to fight?
It's funny, they have grown into corporations with huge bank accounts invested.
Have you seen Unifor's fancy place up on the Humber? They're not helping them. They don't give a shit.
But the concept of the union, I think...
I don't know. Negative energy sucks.
Well, but I don't think it's all negative.
I think every time they want an increase, the problem is they have such mediocrity because everybody makes the same. You can't have somebody get better and get more.
Right. And you can't have a guy who deserves a promotion get a promotion because it's not his cue in line.
So you're pushing, suppressing people, and the only thing they have left is to be angry.
Right, but we've been having this conversation for 50 years. Nothing's changed, right?
Well, okay, so I think what unions forgot is the world all changed.
Well, they're realizing it because it was that food plant out, not sure where it was near Kingston, where the union said we can't, or the company said we can't afford a raise and we're going to have to shut the doors unless you could take this much. And the union said, oh, you're full of shit. We're not. And they actually closed the plant and 200 people lost their jobs, right?
I tell you what I like.
And I don't like that.
I'm okay with the unions. And I'm okay with the unions as long as they give the employer the exact same ability as a union. So when a union comes in and says, we want you guys to go union, vote. I, as the employee, can do, I want you to go non-union. I want to be able to have the pitch, and I want to be able to have my own 4 hours. Sure. And by the way, the union's going to pay for my 4 hours. I'll pay for your 4 hours. Right. You know, the union makes to have. I have to pay the union.
You have to pay your guys to sit and watch.
To listen to you. So now I want the union to sit and watch and listen to me.
Right.
So long as it's
that. That's a good.
So long as it's a level playing field.
You got to pitch that.
As long as it's a level playing field, I'm in. You know, you talk about equality.
Yep.
That quality's gone. The employer has no equality. The employer's the bad guy.
That's a really good point.
And by the way, I'm a really fucking good employer, and I'm not a bad guy. And we've already been cascaded with this paintbrush that we're bad.
But
union's good.
You were originally unionized and then decertified.
No.
But they tried to get your guys
but
the guys have said no. And it's funny because I heard that story around the corner. One of the guys down here, 3 times the union showed up to try to get him. The guys. So he always had the guys come in on a Friday because he always had free company lunch, staff lunch on Fridays.
That's what we try to do too, yeah.
So the union would always show up on Friday when they had the company lunch, and they're having a great time having beer, and the union's trying to talk to, hey, why don't you vote for? They all vote no, always. You know.
So you and I were talking about the lack of labor, lack of shortage of labor, and so you look at unions and then the shortage of labor, and the truth is that the millennials, as socialistic as they are, right? They're very socialistic. They want everybody taken care of. They don't want to be unionized. They want to be able to come and go as they please. They don't want to be told they have to work 7.5 hours and then get overtime at the 8th hour. They don't want to all be paid the same. It's ironic, right? Despite they want everybody's dental to be paid for, drugs to be paid for, education to be paid for, we still want individuality.
100%.
And they're not wanting to work in the auto plant from 7 till 3.
Well, it's funny you say that because today, the Labor Minister, Monty McNaughton, will be releasing over the next couple of days some research that their group has done on millennials. What they like, what they don't like, information the government had no idea existed. Like, they want flexible hours. They want to be able to work from home. They have all this data now.
They want the right to work legislation. So the ability to work in a union environment, be non-union.
Right.